Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive with us.
Yeah, glad to be back.
So today we're going back in time a bit to medieval England to tackle a legend that just refuses to die. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I think I do the man, the myth, the legend, Robin Hood.
You got it. We're diving headfirst into the world of Sherwood Forest to see if we can separate fact from fiction.
You've given me a ton of great material to go through. I mean, early ballads, historical accounts, even some court records.
A real treasure trove, right? And that's our mission today, to dig through all of this and see if there was a real Robin Hood or just a really, really good story.
Well, let's start with those ballads because they paint a very different picture of Robin Hood than what we might be used to seeing in like movies and TV shows.
Totally. He's not exactly the charming, heroic figure we often think of, right?
Not quite in these early ballads. He's much more of a cunning outlaw, definitely skilled with a bow and arrow and always ready to pull off a daring heist.
But not so much the giving to the poor part.
Exactly. The emphasis is on the rebellion, the outsmarting of authority figures, but not necessarily on social justice.
It's more about survival, isn't it? Like a reflection of the harsh realities of life back then?
Absolutely. These ballads capture that raw energy of resistance, that sense of resentment towards those in power who are seen as out of touch and oppressive.
Makes you wonder if it was dangerous to even be singing these ballads back then.
Oh, I'm sure it was, but that's how powerful stories are. They can spread like wildfire, even in the face of danger.
Okay, so we've got this rough and tumble Robin Hood in the early ballads. But then something interesting happens, right? His image starts to evolve.
Yeah, around the 16th century, Robin Hood gets a bit of a makeover thanks to playwrights like Anthony Munday.
Anthony Munday, this guy, decides to give Robin Hood a new backstory.
Right, he transforms him into a dispossessed nobleman who's been wronged by a corrupt system.
So no longer just a common outlaw, but a fallen hero fighting for what's right.
Exactly, he becomes the symbol of nobility and justice, someone who's forced into outlawry but still holds on to his morals.
And from there, Robin Hood's popularity just explodes. He's everywhere.
Books, plays movies, TV shows, even merchandise. I mean, everyone wants a piece of the Robin Hood legend.
And that's what I find so fascinating, why this enduring appeal across centuries. What is it about this figure that captivates us?
Well, I think it's that universal desire for fairness that we all have. You know, we root for the underdog, the one who stands up to bullies and fights for those who can't fight for themselves.
Especially when those bullies are the ones in charge, right?
Absolutely. There's something deeply satisfying about seeing someone outsmart and outmaneuver those who abuse their power, and Robin Hood does that with style and a bit of humor.
Okay, but let's get down to brass tacks here. Were there any real-life Robin Hoods running around medieval England?
Well, you've brought me some intriguing court records from the 1200s with names like Robert Hod and William Robahood popping up.
Wait, so there were actual people using the name Robin Hood back then?
It seems so. Now, whether those were just aliases adopted by people inspired by the legend, or whether those were the names they were actually born with, well, that's still a bit of a mystery.
A mystery we're going to try and solve.
Yeah.
So were these guys the real deal or just some medieval fanboys?
It's hard to say for sure, but the fact that the name was already in circulation suggests that there might have been someone or something that inspired these folks.
Like a real-life outlaw who captured the public imagination.
Precisely someone whose exploits became the seeds for the legend we know today.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat here. Who are some of the top contenders for the real Robin Hood?
Well, one of the most compelling figures is Roger Godberd, a 13th century figure who went from being a farmer to a wealthy baron, only to end up leading a band of outlaws.
Hold on, he goes from farmer to baron to outlaw. That's quite a story.
It is, and get this, he was even captured and imprisoned in Nottingham Castle, just like in the tales.
Whoa, that's a pretty big coincidence.
It is. But some historians argue that while Godberd was a real outlaw, he may not have had that same sense of chivalry and fairness that we associate with Robin Hood.
So maybe more of a ruthless bandit than a noble hero.
Possibly his motives might have been more about personal gain than social justice.
Okay, so if not Godberd, who else is on our list of suspects?
Well, another interesting candidate is Willikin of the Weald, a skilled archer who fought against the French in the early 13th century.
So an enemy of England's enemies, which makes him...
A hero to the English, but potentially a terrifying outlaw figure to the French.
Ah, so Robin Hood, the French villain. I like it.
And then we have figures like Fulk Fitzwarren, who rebelled against King John Hereward the Wake, who resisted the Norman conquest.
Lots of rebellion going on back then.
And then there's Eustace the Monk, a former monk turned pirate and mercenary.
A monk turned pirate? Now, that's a story for another deep dive.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But what all these figures show is that the historical Robin Hood, if there even was one, is likely a composite figure.
A blend of different outlaws and rebels who each contributed to the legend.
Exactly. It's like the Robin Hood legend acted as a magnet drawing in stories and characteristics from various real-life figures to create this larger-than-life persona.
So the real Robin Hood might be more of a tapestry than a single individual.
A tapestry woven from the threads of history, folklore, and that timeless desire for justice and rebellion.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground already, but we're just getting started. Folks, stick with us as we explore how the Robin Hood legend has evolved over time and what it tells us about ourselves.
And believe me, there's a lot more to uncover.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after a quick break. All right, we're back and ready to dig even deeper into the Robin Hood legend.
And you know, one of the things that really strikes me is how this legend evolved alongside the changing views of authority.
Oh, absolutely. Like how people felt about the powers that be really shaped the way Robin Hood was portrayed.
Right, think about medieval England. You had these massive power imbalances between the ruling class and the common folk.
Yeah, you had kings and nobles and the church, all wielding immense power and often seen as completely out of touch with the everyday struggles of the people.
Exactly, and in that context, Robin Hood emerges as this symbol of resistance against the abuse of power, a champion of the oppressed.
He becomes the voice for those who couldn't speak up for themselves, fighting for those who were being exploited and marginalized.
And that theme of fighting for justice against those who hold power well, it resonates across time and cultures, doesn't it?
Totally. It's like a timeless tale of rebellion against injustice, a story that speaks to something deep within us.
And you know, as those social tensions grew, the Robin Hood legend adapted to reflect them.
So he becomes even more than just an outlaw, robbing from the rich. He's actively fighting for change, righting wrongs, trying to create a more just society.
Exactly. He becomes a symbol of hope for the downtrodden, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming power, there's always someone willing to fight back.
And that's why the Robin Hood archetype continues to inspire people today, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Those who challenge the status quo, who speak truth to power, who fight for what they believe in, even if it means going against the grain, they all tap into that same spirit of rebellion that Robin Hood embodies.
We see it everywhere, right? In activists, in whistleblowers, and everyday people who stand up for what's right, even when it's hard.
Exactly. They're the modern-day Robin Hoods, fighting for fairness and justice in their own ways.
So even though we may never know for sure if there was a real historical Robin Hood,
His impact on our culture, on our collective imagination, is undeniable.
he represents something much bigger than himself.
He embodies those timeless values of courage, resilience, and the pursuit of a more just world.
And that's a legacy that continues to inspire us centuries later. All right, so we've explored the origins of the legend, the historical figures, and how it's evolved over time. But there's this one question that keeps coming back to me.
I know what you mean. And does it really even matter if there was a real Robin Hood?
Exactly, because the legend itself has become so powerful that it almost transcends the need for historical accuracy.
Right. It's like the idea of Robin Hood, the symbol of resistance, the champion of the underdog. That's what truly resonates with people.
He represents something bigger than himself, something that speaks to our deep-seated desire for fairness and justice.
And that brings us to something we want you all to think about as you go about your day.
Think about the Robin Hoods in our world today. The people who are challenging the status quo, fighting for what they believe in, even if it means going against the grain.
The whistleblowers, the activists, the ones who speak truth to power even when it's hard.
Are they always right? Are their methods always perfect? Well, that's for you to decide.
Because the line between hero and outlaw can be blurry sometimes.
What matters is that they're willing to stand up for what they believe in, even when it's difficult.
So keep your eyes open. You might be surprised where you find the spirit of Robin Hood alive and well.
Maybe it's in your community. Maybe it's on the global stage. Maybe it's even a little closer to home.
That's the power of this legend. It reminds us that the fight for justice is never truly over. It's a torch that gets passed down through generations.
And who knows, maybe you'll even find a bit of Robin Hood in yourself. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the enduring legend of Robin Hood. We'll catch you next time for another adventure into the past.